Hi, and welcome once again to Ivy English. I'm Karen.
And I'm Chris Gorski.
Today is July 24th, and today we're going to hear part one of a two-part article entitled, Taking a Bite Out of Internet Cookies. Now, you've probably got a lot of conflicting images in your head right now.
That's right. So we're taking a bite out of, which of course means like eating, but there's also a second meaning here. And then we have cookies, so this really ties in. Boy, what a clever little article title we have here. So take a bite out means to try, examine, inspect something. And then we have these internet cookies, which, man, nothing makes me sweatier than maybe this topic right here. Nothing makes me sweatier.
Really?
Yes.
I've gotten used to it, and I know I've got all kinds of garbage in my browser, which I don't want to delete because then I'm going to have to log in again to all the sites that I use. I just don't feel like doing it, so I leave all the garbage there.
It's a complex issue. We need internet cookies, these little devices that will track us, because when we visit websites, the first-party essential cookies are extremely useful. It's the third-party ones that are so pernicious, these nasty little monsters that just follow you around, and I can't stand them. Although, I will say I have used them for intellectual curiosity to kind of look into myself the way the internet views me, which is an interesting experiment until you start feeling really dirty, and then you just shut them all down.
Okay, so then you know why you're getting all those ads for socks or for swimming pools or whatever it is they're trying to sell you. It's because of this behavior that you've exhibited online.
We must have talked about this at some point, Karen. We've known each other long enough now where I've tried to manipulate this game, where I would march around on the way to my house. I live kind of in a slightly isolated place, and I wanted to test if I could alter my internet cookies. And I would just start demanding things to myself where no one else is around. So only I'm influencing what the internet is hearing from me.
So you talk into your phone or you type into your phone?
Catheter tube, type it, write it, say it. And I would do this all by myself. And so I imagine if you were a person looking at your window one night, there's a foreigner walking down the lonely road chanting catheter tube, catheter tube, catheter tube.
Now, I'm guessing that you don't know what a catheter tube is.
Yes.
It's when you are in the hospital or could be at home, but you've got a kind of illness where you cannot go to the bathroom normally. So it will go straight into your bladder and then allow you to pee-pee.
That's right. Now, I don't need this. There's no reason for me to search this. I don't know anybody that needs this. This was the perfect item to see if my microphone was passively listening. Would I get it? And let's jump to the conclusion here. It ended up in my analytics, although I never got specific ads for it. I wonder if it's just not a product that is actively marketed, right? But it showed up in my analytics. So
in case somebody wanted to sell them, the information would be there. Okay, so the first thing was maybe you didn't know the word catheter tube. Now you know. It's to help you go to the bathroom when you have some kind of physical problem. You can't do it the normal way. The second thing is you might not know the difference between first-party and third-party internet cookies. Well, you're in luck because this article is going to tell you. So our title again is Taking a Bite Out of Internet Cookies. Ask your grandparents what cookies are, and you'll probably be told they are tasty treats made from flour, sugar, butter, and a few other ingredients. Ever since 1994, however, the term has taken on a completely different meaning related to the internet. In that year, a 23-year-old American programmer named Lou Montulli invented the cookie. Fast forward to the present day, and cookies have become not only commonplace, but also a subject of growing concern, particularly third-party ones.
Cookies in the digital age have a few different names. Internet cookies, web cookies, browser cookies, or just cookies. In the most basic terms, a cookie is a piece of text that contains some personal information about a user, such as login details or shopping cart contents. One type of cookie is called a first-party cookie. These are designed to make the user's experience of a website smoother and more enjoyable. Generated by the website being visited, first-party cookies allow things like sign-in data to be automatically filled and language preferences to be retained from visit to visit. Without first-party cookies, visitors to websites would need to input information again and again every single time they visit a site.
On the other hand, third-party cookies are not created by the website a person visits, but by other websites or third parties. These are typically used for monitoring users' online activity and building detailed profiles based on those patterns. Unlike first-party cookies, which improve user experience, third-party cookies are intended to help advertisers better target consumers. This is why individuals will often see ads that feature products related to their online searches.
I would like to add something right here, right now. There are many free apps available on the internet. And here's a nice little phrase to help you keep yourself in check here. When something is free, you are the product.
That's right. So if you are not paying for something, somebody is getting something kind of important from you. Now, I think a lot of people will get all upset about spying or about conspiracy theories or whatever when they see these ads on Facebook, for example. But you have to remember you're getting it for free. You have to be ready to pay the price in some way.
That's right. Being connected with these websites, you're kind of giving them permission to do certain things. And I'm okay with this up to a certain point. I get certain ads that I'm okay with them being tailored to me. I'm okay with that. I do get very cross. I do feel very cranky and upset about certain very, very aggressive companies that track everything. And one thing I really dislike is, why do things like smart refrigerators need to track me or passively listen to what I'm doing? You're a washing machine. You're a refrigerator.
Leave me alone.
You're a smart bed. Why are you tracking me? Get out of here.
I paid for you.
This is ridiculous to me, and I will never be convinced that this is a good idea if you ask me. I personally dislike the availability and prevalence of microphones everywhere. As a person that talks into a microphone for a living, I personally like to have spaces without them. But I understand this is something that's kind of par for the course of living in the modern world. Microphones all around you, and you need to accept that there is a certain amount of passive listening. If you have a conversation you don't want shared at all, you need to turn off all the devices. Flat, plain and simple. Politicians understand this, and I remember Hillary Clinton specifically talking about this time and time again during her presidential run.
Okay, I have like 4 or 5 Apple devices. I know they are always listening. I know that, but I've gotten used to it because in many ways it's convenient. So they know things that I want, or they will set a timer or whatever it is. But I don't have any smart appliances. So I am lucky that, knock on wood, we have taken care of our appliances pretty well. We have not had to get new appliances for a long time. So they are just normal appliances. They're not smart, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, in fact, when I needed to purchase a new TV, I had a smart TV, and I just said, well, too bad for you, because you're not getting ever connected to the internet, because it's strictly a monitor for movies and gaming. I'm never connecting it to the internet, so go ahead and try to listen all you want. You ain't got no connection, buddy.
But it actually makes you more self-conscious. At least it makes me more self-conscious. I try not to say anything I would not want somebody else listening to.
Yeah. I'm uncomfortable with this idea in a philosophical perspective. But this is just me. I have particularly strong feelings about this.
Okay, so let's go back to the beginning. Our title again is Taking a Bite Out of Internet Cookies. This could kind of have 2 meanings. To taking a bite out of, that means there was something negative about it and we've made it less negative. So let me take a bite out of that criticism you just heard. Actually, it's not that bad, It's not a disadvantage, it's an advantage. But taking a bite out of can also mean that you've tried something. Let me take a bite out of your dessert. So it can mean both things. All right, first paragraph, ask your grandparents what cookies are, and you'll probably be told they are tasty treats made from flour, sugar, butter, and a few other ingredients. If you've ever baked cookies, you are familiar with this. And I have to say, I avoid added sugar whenever I can. It's not 100%, but it's pretty close. So even though I don't eat cookies, my mouth was still watering.
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, I thought this was a funny little coincidence in my life. My home tutoring student said, "Can we make cookies again?" And I said, yes, we can. But like you, I don't want added sugar, and especially your standard American recipes have an incredible amount of sugar.
Yes.
I prepared them with 1/3 sugar, and I still thought I probably could have got away with like 25%.
And that is generally what you will find in Asia. You will find that sweets are much less sweeter. I don't recommend eating them even with reduced sugar, but at least the sweets in Asia are nothing like in the States. About 1/3 the sweetness is probably about right.
Yeah.
So cookies, even though we've been using this word internet cookies for a very long time, I still always think of the cookies you eat.
What's the cookie? Okay, imagine cookie. What's the image in your mind? What is the cookie in your brain?
Cookie.
Cookie. It's so funny. Isn't that a fun word to say? In my classroom, I don't do the deep growl. I don't do the Cookie Monster. In my classroom, when I teach kids, and I'm not joking about this, I make them say it this way, cookies! And we have this ridiculous, anytime this word comes up, we all just go crazy with this word. It's just a way of making my classroom a little fun. And it's really funny seeing the oldest kids in class just turn beet red with embarrassment.
Oh, that again. It's fun having things like that. They're like an inside joke.
Yes.
So I'm all in favor of stuff like that. There is another use of cookie. It's a slang use. For example, of a new employee, you might say, she's a cute little cookie.
Oh,
or
yeah,
she's a smart little cookie.
Yeah.
It's kind of not politically correct anymore, but we still hear it sometimes.
Do you think of this word as it also having a little bit like commenting on their attractiveness also?
Absolutely.
I feel like it feels like a slightly sexualized, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. But she's a smart cookie. We will focus on the smart in that case. That's means
right.
She solved a problem very quickly without going to ask a man.
I agree that this is a term you probably should avoid, although it's a really easy and good use. Too bad it's got negative connotations.
All right. So if it's your grandparents, but not these grandparents. I'm a grandparent, and I know what a cookie is. All right. I know what an internet cookie is. But maybe grandparents who are not online yet, they'll just think of the kind of cookies that you can bake at home. And these are the usual ingredients: flour, sugar, butter. And you also need some baking powder or something like that to make them rise, or they'll be very hard. Ever since 1994, however, the term has taken on a completely different meaning related to the internet.
I want to ask you, internet is lowercase here. I have paid attention to this word for maybe 10 years now. It has gone from a proper noun, capitalized I, to lowercase I in almost all instances that I see. I want to ask you, as a person that also cares about this, do you still see this capitalized, or do you think this has become a common noun?
I just capitalized it yesterday myself, but I don't really care. I think it's now so common that when something becomes very common, we will tend to abbreviate it, or we will no longer use a capital.
I got to find this out specifically what the Taiwan curriculum wants, because I see it both ways, and I feel like we should be aware. I teach students just do what your teacher says.
Yeah.
Don't slam your hand on the table and says, well, Chris said. Don't do that. Just do what your teacher says. It's a word that's changing.
That's right. And when something is changing, that means both are probably okay. In that year, a 23-year-old American programmer named Lou Montulli invented the cookie. Now, we have a tiny story to tell about this. I got a little message over Facebook from Chris before we recorded. What was it?
Well, Karen and I both really care about pronunciation, especially Karen. Like, this is her whole bag. This is her whole deal. And so we try really hard to get names accurate. But when we hear names from various sources, sometimes they're slightly different. And we really care about getting it right. And this means that we need to listen to endless versions of what's the right way. And we got so lucky. I was just looking for a video about this topic, and I saw a video from Lou Montulli.
Himself.
That's right. And he says, hi, my name's Lou Montulli. And it was like the heavens parted and the angel choir. And it was like, oh, this is so good. And so I made sure to send it to Karen like, oh, he's saying his name himself. Listen, if anyone is listening ever becomes even the little tiniest bit famous, go on the internet and say, hi, my name is, say your name accurately. You make our life so much easier.
That's right. And when I got that message from Chris, I thought, Chris sounds tickled pink.
It was just so wonderful to know that, okay, we know it. And you used a great term here, straight from the horse's mouth.
Yep, that's right. So if you are tickled pink, that means you are very, very pleased. And that's apparently what Chris was. And I'm really glad he helped us that way. Fast forward to the present day, and cookies have become not only commonplace, but also a subject of growing concern, particularly third-party ones. In fact, Chris and I have already discussed that before we started reading, especially Chris. So that means all those advertisers who want to know what kinds of things are you most likely to buy. They're going to be collecting information. Those are third-party cookies.
That's right. So third parties are not from the service you are directly using. Let's say we're using Instagram. When you open your Instagram app, it instantly jumps right to your page. You don't need to enter your login details. because it has first-party cookies. The first-party cookie is from Instagram saying, we will remember your login information. Third-party ones are like, okay, and we're going to follow what you are interested in, and we're going to create ads. That's basically what these means.
Okay.
First-party ones are pretty useful.
Okay, sorry for the interruption. Second paragraph.
Cookies in the digital age have a few different names. Internet cookies, web cookies, browser cookies, or just cookies. And if you call them web trackers, everyone suddenly hates them.
That's right. So they wanted a more positive word, but actually these are all the same. Internet, web, browser, they're all cookies.
So a browser is the thing you use to access the internet. So common ones are Chrome or Safari, DuckDuckGo, or Firefox. Let's continue. In the most basic terms, a cookie is a piece of text that contains some personal information about a user, such as login details or shopping cart contents.
So a lot of these are first-party cookies. So if you go to shop from an online seller, they will save this information, usually your login information, and also how much stuff you already put in your shopping cart, because they really want you to follow through and buy that stuff.
One of the very early problems of the internet was you needed to constantly log in. That means enter your name and password.
Which was really a pain.
It was a real pain. And if you clicked another link to view another item or just read some more information and you went back to your original site, you had to re-log in all your information again. Shopping online was basically impossible because you couldn't say, I want to buy this. And then maybe I also want to buy this, because when you went to that new part of the shopping website, your shopping cart was empty. You would have to individually purchase each item, and this was no good. First-party cookies solve this problem.
Okay, and our next sentence?
One type of cookie is called a first-party cookie,
which we've already explained.
These are designed to make the user's experience of a website smoother and more enjoyable because you're not always re-logging in.
That's right.
Generated by the website being visited, first-party cookies allow things like sign-in data to be automatically filled and language preferences to be retained from visit to visit.
Now, first of all, data can also be pronounced data. I usually say data, but data is also fine. And the other thing here is language preferences. Maybe you don't think about it so much, but when you visit sites, you find that they're usually all in Chinese. It's because there's some setting somewhere that's telling your device that you prefer Chinese. Now, for my iPad, I wanted to practice my French, so I set my working language, the system language, as French. So I get directed to all kinds of things in France.
Interestingly, I get lots of cookies for Hindi for some reason.
Hindi!
I get Hindi when I'm searching a term, like a definition, the etymology, the history of a word. It's like blah, blah, blah in Hindi. I get it all the time. I'm not sure why. I do not know why.
I sometimes get Indian news.
Interesting. All right. So automatically just means a device that does something without direct human control. It just happens by itself. Pay attention. We have login and sign in. We have login details, sign in data. There's a whole story that maybe if we get time, I'll tell you, but it's kind of a long one. It just means your name and password. Let's continue. Without first-party cookies, visitors to websites would need to input information again and again every single time they visit a site, and this is annoying. But for some websites, it's necessary.
Right. You think, well, that's a first world problem. Is that all you have to complain about? But it is truly irritating. Our last paragraph. On the other hand, third-party cookies are not created by the website a person visits, but by other websites or third parties. Read advertisers. Now, when I say read, that means what this really means is, so whenever you see just read all by itself with a colon after it, read means what this really means is... Okay, let's go on. These are typically used for monitoring users' online activity and building detailed profiles based on those patterns.
When we monitor something, we check or observe, especially repeatedly or at regular intervals.
We're spying.
Yeah, spying or tracking is another good word. Lou Montulli believed very strongly in privacy on the internet. He actually did not learn of ad tracking cookies until several years after they were invented. And he said he was very surprised at this because they specifically built cookies in a way that ad tracking would not be possible. They subverted his code and made third tracking cookies possible, I suppose allowing the birth of the modern internet. But he was a little dismayed, if I may be honest. He was not exactly enthusiastic about third-party tracking cookies.
Unlike first-party cookies, which improve user experience, third-party cookies are intended to help advertisers better target consumers. Now, honestly, this is not always all bad because although I almost always ignore them, occasionally there's been something I actually want, like an unusual musical instrument or something.
Yeah, every once in a while, you do get an ad that's worthwhile checking out. I pretty much fly past advertisers in advertising. I just don't care, and I'm not paying attention to you. Generally, since I've turned off tracking cookies, I went through and specifically turned them off, I get very generalized ads. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of interesting where they're like, okay, well, we know he's roughly this age. And we know he's a male. That's basically because you need to provide that when you log in. I get the most generic 40-year-old guy ads on the universe. It's just like, here's some liquor, here's a car, please buy something.
And also, for example, on Facebook, they are very, 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 very repetitive, which actually works to your advantage because as soon as you see the first 3 words, you just jump over it. Because it's so repetitive, you don't have to waste your time figuring out if you want to read it or not.
It sounds like, from my experience, that ads, especially on Facebook, seem to be much worse in the United States than we get. I don't get terribly too many ads on Facebook.
I get a lot.
Oh, really? I wonder if that has something to do with me just completely dismantling what they want.
I think so.
So I really don't get that many ads. If I do, like I said, it's almost some harmless generic liquor ad that I just scroll right past.
Liquor. So that's why I actually don't mind because, like I said, they're repetitive. I know which ones to skip over. I just feel that I'm paying my dues for using a free service.
Yeah, I agree. We've got to pay for the internet. It has to pay from some. The money has to come from somewhere.
And I get so many benefits from it. Every time I get in touch with someone else who I connect with, I think, whatever you say, man, I'm glad we've got this. Yeah. And it was really convenient for us to be able to talk just through messaging over Facebook.
I agree.
So don't forget the things that you are getting out of it. Our last sentence, this is why individuals will often see ads that feature products related to their online searches. And Chris gave an example with catheter tubes.
Catheter tubes, the thing that helps you go to the bathroom. And so I dug up my analytics in my Google profile, Facebook profile, and although I didn't get direct ads for Google Analytics, I did discover that I had medical device in part of my profile.
Oh.
They knew my age, they knew my sex and gender, generally what a lot of my likes were based on what I viewed. They knew roughly that I was a fan of American football and generally sports in kind of a larger perspective. And some things were really shockingly specific. But today it seems that my biggest part of my Google Analytics profile is AA Paper Company, Uber, and The Economist.
That's hilarious.
I have no idea why AA Paper is on there.
I don't know either.
Chris must be a guy that uses a lot of printer paper.
There was a cute cartoon of a couple out riding in their car. And they have an accident. They smash into a tree. And they're going to get out their phones to get help. And immediately they get an ad for car repair and for an injury attorney. That means a lawyer who can sue and get you money for a car when you've had a car accident. Okay, that's all we have time for today. We have another part to this article tomorrow, so make sure you tune in then. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.